What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the TCG Empire YouTube channel. Today we are going over Tech Tuesday. If you're not sure what that is or you're new here, this is where we take the deck of the week and we talk about some techs that you can play in the deck in order to improve matchups, or cards that you can play in your deck to play against the deck of the week in order to better your matchup into it. Now this week we did talk about the brand new deck with Paldea Vault called United Wings. So we're going to be going over some cards that specify that matchup. So I do have Zach with me. As you all know, Zach is one of my best friends. This channel would not be where it's at without him. I'll let him introduce himself real quick, just in case anyone's new.
Yo, what's going on, guys? As Tyler said, my name's Zach. Usually the one that helps Tyler, formulate his videos every week, helps him get his schedule in place, and yeah, I'm the one that kind of makes sure that these videos go well.
So as you can see in front of you, we do have a few cards that actually do really well if you're wanting to improve your United Wings matchup. Now, when it comes down to it, these cards won't allow you to auto-win a matchup, but they will indeed help improve your matchup in theory. As Zach likes to say, his favorite sentence is "in theory." So we'll get started right away. So the first card that we are going to talk about is Spiritomb. Now, this card is from Chilling Reign, I believe. And the essence of the Spiritomb is that with Ghostly Cries, you get to place damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon in any way you like for each Pokemon in their discard, and then they have to shuffle all of those Pokemon back in. This is very similar to the Oricorio back when Night March was a thing, and Oricorio was really well placed in the meta, along with being good against Vespiquen type decks, as they both relied on Pokemon in the discard. So in the essence of Ghostly Cries, it's very good because you shuffle away the damage output that United Wings has. You'll never really use Will-O-Wisp, but Ghostly Cries is something that can really just kind of put a United Wings player on the back burner if they can't find ways to discard more Pokemon. But Zach, what do you think of the card?
Like as you said yesterday, I think this is the fourth iteration of this style of deck that we've seen. We, had Night March, Lost March, Mad Party, and now United Wings. And, you know, over time, the Pokemon Company has realized that we kind of need to keep that in check because it is very powerful to have a one prize deck that can do so much damage. And so over the years, we got cards like the Oricorio that you mentioned, but we also got Karen, which shuffled all the Pokemon back into the deck. And so to look at this Spiritomb and see that it does both Oricorio and Karen together is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, I think that it has a very good place in the meta if, the United Wings starts kind of going rampant. Because right now people are looking at it as something that, the deck's not really going to do well. But when it's not really expected and people aren't prepared for it, there's kind of no room for, error. You're taking one prize on their attackers while they're hitting for big numbers. And Spiritomb really just mitigates that. But next card we'll talk about is Charon's Care. This is just kind of in case you're playing, Arceus and you're playing into the matchup of United Wings, you're only getting one prize. And with Arceus, they're two-shotting you, so you can mitigate a lot of damage that they do. They don't have a chance to hit for 280 once you have the V-Star out, so you'll be able to put everything back into their hand and basically deplete them of all the damage that they just invested into in order to, try and two-shot you. Now they're going to have to two-shot you again rather than doing a back-to-back swing. So I don't think there's really much explanation when it comes to Charon's Care. It just gets rid of the damage that they may do. So the next card, Collapsed Stadium, I'll let Zach talk about this one because Collapsed, he's been on and off about it, but I want to hear his thoughts as far as playing Collapsed against the United Wings list that we looked at this week.
Collapsed is definitely a very good card against the United Wings, both as a healing card and a prize prevention card. So like you mentioned with the Charon's Care, if you hit into something and don't take the knockout, and then you as the person playing against the United Wings, if you can retreat that Pokemon and then collapse it away, you nullified one of the turns of the Wings player, and that can set them really far behind. And then it's also, on the flip side, if you have to play something like a Luminion or, just something that you really don't want to have in play, you can collapse it away after getting the value out of it to prevent that United Wings player from getting those additional prizes on you.
Yeah, and I think it's really good too. I mean, we've seen Collapse Stadium do big wonders when it comes to things like Gardevoir, where you kind of have a bunch of damage counters on things, and you just kind of get rid of all that damage or something that you don't want on the bench anymore. That way your opponent can't get the prizes for it. So it's a super solid card. We do have Radiant Greninja in here, but it's kind of a placeholder. Radiant Greninja acts as something that can take multiple prizes in one turn on United Wings, but overall playing any card that can really take additional prizes or do multi-type attacks will be good, providing that they don't have Manaphy out or you have Canceling Cologne to get rid of the Manaphy's ability. Being able to take, multiple prizes really puts you back in the prize trade, because if you can take 2 prizes and then they take 2, it's not as awkward as you playing an all one prizer, type deck and only taking 1 prize card at a time while your opponent's taking 2 off your V-Stars or EXs. Next card, Klefki. I'll let Zach talk about this because he has played United Wings more than me, so he knows about how annoying Klefki can be.
So if your opponent starts a Klefki, you are going to be in for a very rough time, because this shuts off Flamigo's instant flock, it shuts off Squawkabilly's Squawk and Seize, and then like even in the mid to late game, if your opponent sits behind a Klefki and you don't have a boss or an escape rope, you actually can't attack with Ditto, which is kind of really interesting. So like this card overall actually does a lot of work against United Wings, and it's honestly all the more reason to kind of see that Arc Arrow Keys deck come, further ahead in the meta if the United Wings does pick up.
All right, new BDIF, Klefki paired with Spiritomb. Let's go. And finally, we do have the new card from Paldea Evolve. This is Noivern EX. This is basically the old style of Giratina EX and also Flying Pikachu. It's basically in one card. You have Covert Flight, where it does 70 damage, which does KO things like the Ditto, as long as you don't have a double turbo on you, and it prevents all damage done to the Pokemon by basics. So you can pair this with something like Regidrago that has a ton of HP, and copy the attack, and then from there, you're really able to just kind of lock down everything that the United Wings player has, because they have nothing to attack with that's an evolution aside from Barrel, and even then that's a coin flip requirement and you have to hit heads. And then Dominating Echo, during your next turn your opponent can't play special energy or stadium cards. This really shuts them down, as they can't play things like Pokestop, and they can't attach the double turbos either, which means that they have to be very reluctant on how they retreat or how they use their energy, because aside from playing 2 Palpat and Clara, once those and Super Rod, once those dark energy are gone, or if you have some prized, you're in for a very tough time. So what do you think about Noivern, Zach?
Noivern definitely feels like the prevention card. It's kind of interesting that they released this card in the same set as the United Wings, because Covert Flight, just happens to do enough damage to kill the Ditto and the Murkrow and the Wattrel. So you would think, okay, maybe I can sit behind my Flamigo for a turn, maybe try and, find some escape ropes, find some bosses. And then they're just like, oh, you're going to try and come up with a double turbo attacker now. Let me just switch to Dominating Echo, which not only kills the Flamigo, but also prevents you from attaching those double turbos. So it's just like, this card at face value looks like United Wings' worst nightmare.
Plus, not to mention, it does have 260 HP, and United Wings caps out at 240 damage unless you have a band attached to you. But band does not work against Noivern. You would have to use something like gloves. I know that there is a dragon type gloves, but you're not really going to want to invest a spot just to try and hit the 270 mark, as that's still 2 shots most V-Stars and even V-Maxes in the format right now. So overall, these are the techs that you can really mess around with to see if you really struggle against United Wings. Even a one-of tech of some of these cards might actually do some damage, especially like Spiritomb. If you play 1 to 2 in your list and can kind of get them back to back, they might be able to recover as a United Wings player from one turn of having their Pokemon shuffled back. But when it comes down to it, going for a Ghostly Cries a second time really just puts them in an awkward spot. Not to mention, if they have, 12 Pokemon in the discard, that's 12 damage counters that you're spreading around, which does add up, as we've seen with Sableye. So these are some cards that you can play if you want to improve your matchup. Otherwise, let's go to the cards that you can play possibly in your United Wings list in order to possibly kind of better these things. So the first card we do have is Beach Court. Now, Beach Court is in here just because everything in the deck, aside from when you evolve into Bibarel, has a 1 retreat cost, and even then Bibarel does not benefit from this, as Beach Court is only for basics. But otherwise, everything within your list is a free retreater when Beach Court is out, so it means you don't have to rely on Escape Rope if you need to swing into a Ditto to attack. And so I feel like it's a super solid card. Plus, against something like Noivern, where you need to, kind of keep an eye on your Dark Energy. If they lock you out of your DTEs, then you can safely retreat your basics without having to get rid of a Dark Energy and hope to find it later. So Beach Court, really solid card. Next, we'll talk about Roseanne's backup. Zach was playing this for a while, so I'll let him talk about this.
Yeah, so when I first started playing United Wings, I had what felt like a much more slower build, and I was really focusing on the double turbo energies because you have 8 birds that take double turbos, whereas you only have the one set of 4 Murkrow that take the dark. So I really liked Roseanne's as a form of getting those double turbos back, and then it also, in that initial build, I did play Beach Court as well. So it felt really nice to be able to, get back a double turbo and a Beach Court, and then, something like a Ditto as well. You basically just got a whole turn's worth of setup out of one card, and it felt really good. So if, the meta kind of dictates that you shift back to that kind of somewhat slower build, I could easily see this going back in.
Yeah, definitely. It's nice to be able to just have one card that really just shuffles back everything that you might need in a specific turn, especially with being able to draw with Bibarel. Plus, as you draw through more of your deck, you start to thin, and so when you kind of have no cards in deck, or you're down to the last 1 or 2 cards, being able to Roseanne's and shuffle back, depending on if you're playing the tool card or not, being able to shuffle back 3 to 4 cards really improves the consistency and not having to worry so much about if you're going to deck out or not. The next card we do have is Radiance Arena. Radiance Arena, it just helps with the Sableye math. Lost Box is one of your worst matchups, as Sableye can spread damage counters, and it really just kind of makes things difficult for you because you have such little HP, and it turns into, as we talked about earlier with the multi-prize turns, with something like Greninja or something that can take multiple prizes. It's really tough for the deck to deal with it. So Radiance Arena might be something good to play just because you can heal 20 from everything, as opposed to just, having a Sharon's Care to pick up the Ditto, which only heals, one part of the Ditto. So how do you feel about Radiance Arena, Zach?
I think it's good if like the meta dictates that you place your damage counters in a certain way, because I played against a lot of Lost Box with United Wings, and a very common thing that I see is they'll usually do 7 to the Manaphy, they'll put 10 on 2 Dittos, and then they'll put like 30 on the Bibarel. So that way, the Bibarel can get hit by Greninja. If you recover the Manaphy, then now you can like snipe both Dittos with the Sableye. So like just doing that little bit of spread damage actually matters a lot. So if that becomes like the standard kind of play for Lost Box to set it up to where they're guaranteeing that 2 prize turn, then the Serena just completely shuts that whole turn down and can really help you swing that matchup back in your favor.
And finally, we do have Radiant Jirachi. Now, Radiant Jirachi's in here just because if you do start with it, it's something where once it gets KO'd, you can search your deck for 3 cards, put them into your hand, and discard, a lot of the cards that you might want to discard. You can grab things like Ultra Ball, you can grab things like Flamigo if you haven't been able to see it yet. It just guarantees you that you at least have 3 cards that you really want to look for. And with playing Double Turbo, you have a chance to actually, KO your opponent's active, which I feel like wasting a Double Turbo and trying to leave it in the active to try and KO something. Even if you don't and it still gets KO'd, you might have a tough time with the double turbos being gone, but you still do play the darks that can, be used to copy Murkrow. It's nice because it ensures that you're either getting prizes or you're searching for the cards that you definitely want to search for when it comes to being KO'd. So, Zach, what do you feel about Radiant Jirachi?
I think Radiant Jirachi is great into the Noivern specifically for a multitude of reasons, actually. First off, if they're using the first attack that only does 70 damage, that's not a one-shot on Jirachi, which means that, A, they're not using the special energy denying attack, which means that you technically get 2 rolls to try and one-shot, or not one-shot, but try and KO with Astral Misfortune. And then if this Jirachi gets KO'd and they're using the first attack, you can actually use the Jirachi to kind of create an infinite loop where you grab like Beach Court, another double turbo, and a rescue carrier, and then you just retreat into the Jirachi and do it again. So you can almost kind of force them to use the second attack rather than the first one. And if you do that, then you get to come in with one of your other attackers and hit him for a big amount of damage. So I think this Jirachi is a really, really good include if you are seeing a lot of Noivern specifically.
Yeah. So overall, with United Wings being a new deck, people are still tinkering with it, so nobody's going to have the perfect list yet. But as far as the list that we've looked at this week, it has been super consistent, but I could see a lot of these cards either being well added into the list or being, a struggle to play against with the current list that we have built. But overall, I want to thank you guys so much for watching today's video. If you did enjoy it, smash that like button, subscribe, turn on post notifications. Thank you so much to Zach for, again, helping me with everything and also sitting in here and talking for the 17 minutes we've been in here about United Wings. I see he is one of the most consistent players I've seen that has built this list and piloted it and even took it to locals and won a local tournament with it. So again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in tomorrow's What to Buy Wednesday.